Mr. President, Excellencies, and distinguished delegates, I have an honor of addressing the Human Rights Council today on behalf of the Coordination Committee of Special Procedures in the context of the urgent debate to discuss the recent military aggression launched by Israel against the State of Qatar on 9 September 2025. This attack is a grave breach of the United Nations Charter, especially the prohibition of the use of force against the territorial integrity of any state. Such illegal actions violate the right to life, undermine international multilateral order, and risk further destabilization of the region. Israel's continued attacks against multiple sovereign states, in addition to the crimes it is committing against the Palestinian people, are normalizing the use of violence under the guise of self-defense and are sending a deeply troubling signal that might can override the rule of law. Mr. President, Israel's latest attack in the region came as a critical moment when Qatar, together with Egypt and the United States, was leading efforts for a ceasefire and the release of hostages. By targeting individuals gathered to discuss these proposals, Israel undermined one of the few credible avenues to restore peace and prevent further destruction in Gaza and open a path to peace. Killing members of a negotiating team not only violates international law, but also breaks the very foundation of the peace diplomacy, which requires dialogue conducted in good faith rather than the deceptive use of force. The Coordination Committee echoes the Secretary General's condemnation of this attack as a violation of Qatar's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Respect for these principles are not optional. They are the foundation of the United Nations system and must be upheld by all states, regardless of circumstances. We applaud the continuous efforts of Qatar to secure a ceasefire and release of all hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. Excellencies, this aggression also illustrates the indestructible link between the three pillars of the United Nations: peace and security, human rights, and sustainable development. Peace is a precondition for realizing human rights and achieving sustainable development. When diplomacy is undermined by unilateral illegal military action, cycles of violence and lawlessness are triggered. Apart from resulting in the loss of lives of innocent people, such actions widen distrust, weaken the rule of law, obstruct humanitarian access, and divert resources away from sustainable development. The effects of such acts erode international norms and encourage impunity, creating conditions in which further human rights violations become more likely. This aggression is the latest in the series of demonstrating the right-based international multilateral system is being substituted by a might makes right system, testing the entire UN system to the limits. Conflicts continue to inflict immense suffering on people with limited effective international response. One main reason is that states and other actors are failing to uphold the values and principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the UN Charter. Without a determined effort to respect international human rights law and international humanitarian law, there is a risk of the UN and human rights system collapsing with devastating consequences. Hence, the Human Rights Council cannot remain silent in the face of dangerous precedents set by Israel. We strongly urge Israel to respect international law and to refrain from further actions that jeopardize prospects of peace and threaten regional stability. It must immediately halt its offensive in Gaza City, allow unrestricted access to humanitarian aid, and end its illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories as required by the International Court of Justice and the UN General Assembly. We call on all states to stand in solidarity with Qatar and take collective actions to hold accountable those responsible for this attack. Accountability is not only a legal imperative, but also an essential condition for restoring trust in the mechanisms of diplomacy and conflict resolution. The international community should not allow Israel to be law unto itself, nor should it allow a state to shield another state from accountability for grave and systemic violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law. At this critical moment, the international community must strengthen support for mediation and humanitarian relief. The urgent need for a ceasefire in Gaza, the release of hostages, and the delivery of aid cannot be delayed. The people in Gaza have endured immense suffering, with tens of thousands killed and almost an entire territory devastated. They deserve dignity, justice, accountability, and a durable peace. Mr. President, the Coordination Committee, as well as the Special Procedure mandate holders, stands readily to support the Council, the High Commissioner, and all relevant actors in monitoring and responding to the human rights implications of the crisis. The principles of the UN Charter, the protection of human rights, and the rule of law must guide our collective response. We cannot allow aggression, impunity, and disregard for international law to become the new norm. Qatar, the people of Gaza, and the wider region look to the Council to act with resolve and uphold the core values on which the United Nations was founded. It is critical to reassert human rights as a pathway to address all ongoing crises and to create a peaceful and sustainable world for all. I thank you.
Merci.